Hey, today we're going to talk about gas law problems, but before we do, you need reference table T, okay? We're going to look at the table for the formula for the combined gas law. And what you're going to notice is that there's three things. There is a P, a V, and a T. 1, 1, 1. There's a P, a V, and a T. 2, 2, 2. You got to have an initial pressure and a final pressure. Initial volume, initial temperature, final temperature. Basically, this is telling you what's going to happen if you change the conditions to a gas sample. And if you change one, since they're all interrelated, as we're going to find out in our lab, if you change one, something's going to happen to the other one. They always have to be constant. So whatever this totals, this also has to total. So the formula is P1 times V1 over T1 equals P2 times V2 over T2. So before I go into the details of this, one thing you want to pay attention to is if it tells you that the pressure remains constant, then you can avoid calculating pressure. Or you can put a 1 in here, like a 1 for this and a 1 for this. If they tell you that the container is a rigid container, all that means is the volume doesn't change. If the container is rigid, this stays the same. So whatever you put for the first one, you also put for the second one. I like to put 1s in here because it makes it easier to calculate. So for example, if 100 milliliters of a gas in a rigid container at STP is cooled to 200 Kelvin, what is the new pressure? The first thing that I want you to do is put your P1, V1, T1, P2, V2, and T2. Always, 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 always. I want to see this on your papers. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to annotate. This 100 milliliters is volume. So it is volume. And plus, it says rigid container. That means the volume doesn't change. So this is also 100 milliliters. Now if I look down here, read through this, and you'll notice that it says that it is at STP before it is cooled. So if the initial is STP, standard temperature 273. I also recommend you write the units in here. And finally, the pressure is 1 atmosphere. If they don't give you a pressure, use the 1 atmosphere because it's much easier to calculate than writing 101.3 kilopascals. So when it says STP, we know it has to be 1 atmosphere and 273 Kelvin. Now the final conditions, I have a temperature and a pressure. Since it says what is the new pressure, that means my pressure is an unknown. What is the new temperature? I'm going to look down here for the unit Kelvin, and I see I have 200 Kelvin. Now, what all I want to do is I can set up a numerical setup. I don't have to do the calculations because you guys can figure out the calculations, but I'm going to plug in these numbers. So I have 1 atmosphere times 100 milliliters divided by 273 equals X times 100 over 200. Now you can cross multiply and divide. 27,300x equals 2,000. You can subtract and figure this out. Your pressure is going to be a different value.